Hey guys, it's Caden here with Kepler Electronics, and today we're going to be talking about Tower Takeover, the new Vex game for the 2019 to 2020 season. This actually looks like it's shaping up to be a pretty interesting game. So what is it? Well, you have different color cubes, and you have to score them. Each alliance has a goal in the corner of their side of the field, and you have to stack cubes in that corner. From what I've read, it seems like you can probably stack about two stacks of cubes as high as you want. And so there are three different colors of cubes: orange, green, and purple. There are 22 of each of those colors on the field at the start of the game. And there are also two orange cubes in the Red Alliance's station that can be introduced at any time, and there are two green cubes in the Blue Alliance's station that can be introduced at any time they choose. There are also two purple cubes that go to the winner of the autonomous category and can be introduced by whichever team wins autonomous at whatever time they choose. So the thing about this is that points, so each cube is worth 1 point as it is standing in the scored zone. But for each cube that is placed in a tower, each cube of that color for both alliances is increased by 1 point. So if I have two cubes up in the top towers, you can't stack them on the same tower, but they have to be in different towers. So if I have two purple cubes in two different towers, that means that each purple cube that each alliance has scored is worth 3 total points, which means that you can really stack points. So you can't place more than one cube in a tower, and they must be seated past a line. So if the cube is kind of sitting on the edge, it doesn't count. But if part of the cube is past the line, then it does count. To be noted is that if there are more than one cube up there, neither cube counts. So you can't get insane. You can't stack every cube up there. But yeah. So the other thing is that each alliance has a selective tower, which can only be used by them. And if the opponent tries to descore from that tower, they will get disqualified, and it is an instant disqualification, whether it is match affecting or not. There is also each alliance also has a protected zone, and which I may be wrong. Check for corrections in the description if I got something wrong. Prevents descoring and knocking over the stacks of cubes. But it also grants an instant disqualification if so let's say we're in the blue corner of the field. If the blue robot is entirely inside of their protected zone in the corner, marked off by the tape and the two field tiles. So if they're completely within that zone and a red robot touches them, instant disqualification for red. So this year it seems like they're trying to really back off hard from the defensive play that we saw in Turning Point. So another thing that's interesting is that robots must be touching the wall this year. In previous years, we've often used like an alignment bar, like a piece of C channel or something, to line up the robot on the field tiles, like with the seam between tiles. But we can't do that this year. So that's going to put a little bit of a change into our autonomous plans. Another thing that's back for this year is the no crossing the double line rule, which I personally really liked. It was a pretty nice design to prevent the autonomous programs that would just drive straight across the field to wreck the other team's autonomous program. That I personally saw a lot of in the zone. That seemed a very popular autonomous strategy. But perhaps the most interesting part of this game is the infinite expansion. So, of course, since this is a stacking game, there's no horizontal expansion limit. But for the first time in several years, I believe I believe Starstruck may have been the last year where there were no expansion limits. There are no horizontal expansion limits or vertical expansion limits. You can go as big as you want. And honestly, I think this is where this is really gonna take off. I think so. Wall bots are back. That's a big thing. I don't know how effective they'll be this year. So autonomous this year is going to be absolutely insane. I know a lot of teams this year, my team included, had about 8 different autonomous programs. You had one for the front, one for the back, and then a variation of each that didn't park, and then of course mirrored for each side. But this year there's a lot more variability, and you're not going to be able to quite predict what your partner does. So I predict that teams are going to be having a lot of varied autonomous programs that kind of account for different circumstances and can be used in different ways depending on what their autonomous partner does. So I think autonomous is going to be a real challenge this year. Skills autonomous, not so much. It's still going to be difficult, but I think that it could potentially be, it could be about the same difficulty as this year's skills autonomous. But driver autonomous, when you have to account for another person that you may or may not have any idea who they are, that could be a really big deal. Especially because you're confined to one side of the field this year. So that is the game. It wasn't a water game, unfortunately, but I'm pretty happy with it. This should be a really interesting year to see all the designs that people come with, whether it be the classic Goliath rollers like we saw in the zone, whether it be like inverted stackers stacking from the bottom. This is going to be a really interesting year to see, and I think speed is going to be a really big part of this, trying to get all the cubes over to your side as fast as possible. Because if you can get the cubes over to your side and get them into your protected zone and then kind of stack them as you can, precision is going to be insanely big this year because there is no locking between the cubes. It's not like in the zone where each one kind of nested on top of each other, or even like Turning Point where you kind of can stack the cap inside of it. This should be a really interesting year to see what people come up with. Thank you for watching this. My voice is totally shredded from all of the yelling at Worlds, so that's why I sound different. Also, I'm recording this in a hotel at 11 o'clock at night. So thank you all for watching. Have a good season, I guess. Turning Point was really fun. It's kind of sad that it's gone, but on to newer and better things. Thank you so much for watching. And as was the case last year, I'm sure I got things wrong. So anything that gets pointed out to me in the comments or that I realize later, I will put in the description below. So thank you very much for watching, and be sure to subscribe and keep experimenting.